One rule that I love, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not who someone else is today.
Women prefer, which is the important word, women prefer a partner of equal or greater status.
Yeah.
Now, I spoke about this with my fiance, and I was like, I think it's true. For various reasons. I was like, I think it's true. What do you think as a woman? Because obviously I'm a man. So what do you think as a woman?
Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't.
Yeah.
And this was another rule that I really liked, because you know sometimes when you have conversations with certain people and they're not listening to you, they're just listening so that they can respond. They're waiting for you to stop talking so that they can say their point. Let's go on to 11, because I know you want to talk about it.
Only because I feel like it would be a cop out not to.
Yeah.
Because it's like he's very controversial, and like I said, I had one very, very heated debate.
Welcome back to another episode of Book Reviews with Ty and Fly. I go by Ty.
Yes. What's happening with Mr. Fly? What's going on?
Yeah. So we just discussed about who was going to do the intro, and I've taken over.
You're the boss, man. You're the boss.
We've got this month's book, 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. This was a book that Mr. Fly recommended, and a book that I'm actually excited to talk about it as I went through my notes this morning. But again, it will be interesting to see our review at the end, our star rating and our difficulty rating. Let's get straight into it. Firstly, actually, why did you pick this book?
Well, Jordan Peterson, funny enough, just quickly, I've got a lot of when I told people I was reading this book, I got a lot of mixed responses. I don't know about you, but because he's definitely someone that divides opinion. I came across Jordan Peterson, I remember I saw a clip of his on YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube, and then I just kind of went more in, and I kind of like his seminars. So he's obviously he's an ex-teacher. He used to be a teacher or lecturer at a university in Canada, and a lot of his lectures are online. And then also he's done a lot of debates, a lot of things like that. Then he's also now become sort of I wouldn't really call it. I call it a speaker, maybe a public speaker is what I'd call it. Where he gets. So I just kind of quite interested in that. Then this book obviously been out since before I knew who he was, but I'd always kind of planned on reading it, and so I just thought obviously it's the perfect opportunity to read it. Yeah.
Okay. Wicked. So 12 rules for life. He goes through 12 rules that he sets out for life, pretty much. And they're not kind of your bog standard rules. They all kind of have a bit of a twist to them, if you like. And he elaborates in each section. So I guess we're going to go through some of them. I don't know if we'll get time to go through all of them. We'll go through some of them. Rule number 1, I'm just going to start with that because it's on the list. Stand up straight with your shoulders back.
Good posture. Is that good posture?
Stand up straight with your shoulders back. Good posture. But also, it shows you're confident. It puts that kind of confident authority out there, doesn't it? That confident posture. If you see someone there hunched over, down, people can look shy or timid or even upset or sad. You know what I mean? When you're body language exactly. Body language says a lot in certain scenarios. I mean, in a lot of scenarios it says a lot, but stand up straight with your shoulders back. And I really liked when he was comparing humans to lobsters. And
he's actually just quickly, he's very well known for that. I don't know if you know now. No,
I didn't know.
There's a lot of people kind of make a bit of a joke out of it as well, but he's very well known for this chapter. But carry on.
Okay. And there was a bit in it that made me laugh out loud. I literally laughed when I was reading it. I was laughing, and I don't know why I found it so funny. Well, let me explain. So he compares humans to lobsters, and lobsters are, the guys, they fight each other for the women, or to show that they're the macho lobster and for territory. And when one of the lobsters loses, they enter a state of depression, which can be related to humans. We go through difficult times. We can get into a state of depression and not be able to get out of it, or it takes years for us to get over certain things, for some individuals anyway. But what made me laugh was, it said the one that lost the fight with the other lobster, they go back to the other lobsters and they gossip. So they start to gossip about the lobster that just beat them up. Yeah. And when I read it, I was thinking, firstly, how do you even know that? How do you know that they're gossiping? Like, but also,
that's funny. I don't remember that part. That's funny. But yeah, with that, I mean, he brings up the whole lobster thing, because obviously the lobsters date back to, you know, they date back to like prehistoric and all this kind of stuff, like, and it's about hierarchies. So, you know, the lobsters that continue to win are higher up in the hierarchy than the lobsters that continue to lose. So, you know, and obviously that goes down to their body language, their posture. I think he says lobsters have serotonin as chemical, which so do humans. So that's kind of the relation there, where it's like, you know, if you're as a human, if you're more confident, let's say, if you're less confident, which is you have low serotonin, decreased confidence, less happiness, you suffer from more pain and more anxiety. And if you have more serotonin, you have more confidence, you'll be happier, and you won't suffer as much from anxiety or pain. So then that will kind of, you're more likely within the hierarchical structures, you're more likely to maybe succeed within society. Again, if you put out that positive aura and you go into a job interview for something like that, and you're kind of, you know, because of low serotonin, you feel like you're low in the hierarchy, you know, society's hierarchy, then you have less chance of success, etc., etc. So that's how he kind of relates the two. So I think, with that, he's just trying to say you need to kind of be a confident individual. And then, what I think he found, there was a study where lobsters that had lost in their kind of territorial battles, when they injected them with serotonin, or they gave them, antidepressants, the same antidepressants that they give humans, those lobsters behaved as though they just won, and then they went and won their next fight or something like that. So it's quite interesting. You know, it's always interesting when you're kind of looking at nature and humans and animals, and kind of seeing to how we relate and whatnot. But yeah, it's just, you know, it's interesting, and that obviously, that's the whole thing with hierarchies links into what Jordan Peterson's kind of well known for as well, in regards to, like, which we'll get into later, like chapter 11. Which was, I think, was the most controversial chapter in the book. But we'll get there. But yeah, I think it's, you know, it's very interesting. Put it that way. I thought it was interesting. It was an interesting chapter.
And you know, I agree with the chapter. You know, in general, you know, sit straight with your back up. Well, what does it say? Stand up straight with your shoulders back. You know, walk with confidence. And like you said, those with more confidence, in theory, might be in a better position to get that job if they go for the job interview, or impress someone on a date, or whatever it is. You know, when you walk with confidence, people like people that are winning. People like people that are doing things right. So
I think it relates to your experiences as well. Like, you know, like you're saying, like your experiences. If you're a confident person, your life will kind of follow a certain track. The way you deal with things will kind of follow a certain track. Whereas if you're kind of like a defeated person or low in confidence, you know, then you kind of, you know, two different people will react to the same situation in two totally different ways. And this kind of goes into, maybe it's quite interesting. Things like serotonin and those sort of chemicals in the brain and stuff like endorphins and whatnot, they really quite interest me. So maybe I want to do more. I want to learn more about that stuff. But it makes a lot of sense.
Well, they say a quick fun fact for my health and well-being gang: approximately 90% of serotonin is made in the gut. So, you know, when you eat, it can, you know, if you're eating healthy, nutritious foods, it can really impact your mood and your happiness. When you eat junk and, you know, crap food, it can also affect your moods and your happiness. All right, there's so many rules. Let's not dwell on that. Was there any that you read and thought, oh wow, I love this one? You know
what, right? With the rules, you know, one that I liked the title of, which was "Don't let your children." There was a few, but the one I'll say, don't let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. The thing with these rules is they're very simple. Like when you break it down, like they're not like that complicated, which I think it needs to be simple. And the whole thing with, like I said, I've watched a lot of his debates, and the whole thing with Jordan Peterson is he breaks it down to the individual level. Now again, people are gonna say this, he's that, he's this, he's that, he's this, he's that. But when he's talking about his rules for life, they're very simple. That you can help your life, you can have a better quality of life if you just follow these rules. So going to parenting, obviously I'm not a parent at the moment, but obviously I plan to be. So if something as simple as that, you can even, without even reading the chapter, you can understand the rule. You don't even need to read the book. You know, don't let your children do anything that will make you dislike them. So in that chapter, he kind of talks about parenting and how a lot of parents try and become friends. You know, so you've got to kind of make that. And again, I'm not a parent. I work with a lot of children, young people, but I'm not making judgment on anyone's parenting skills. But it's like, you know, there's that line, which he says, there's that line where you kind of become parent or friends, and then the difference is friends have a very limited capacity for authority. So as a friend, being your friends, I can tell you something, and you can just choose to listen or disagree, or agree or disagree with what I'm saying. As a parent, the parent's got a higher authority for that. So your parent can say something to you or to me and say, oh, listen, do this. And the fact that they're your parent will make you listen that much more. And you might even disagree with what they're saying, but you're still going to listen to them because, oh, that's my mom, that's my dad, or that's my parent, that's my father figure. So I think once you kind of cross that line of, well, you know, as a parent, like, oh, you know, we're friends, we're more like friends than thing. Obviously, as you get older, the lines blur a little bit, but you kind of want to, what he's saying is basically don't blur those lines. Keep that separation. And I can't really argue with that.
Yeah, and what he said in that section as well, he said you can discipline your children, or you can turn that responsibility over to the harsh, uncanny, judgmental world. So it's like, you know, don't let your children grow up without discipline. Children need discipline. They need boundaries. They need rules. Because if you don't implement them, and if you don't enforce certain morals, certain ways of life, society will shut them down. And you've probably got friends. I know I've got friends who may have been shut down by society in certain things because their parenting upbringing, they haven't had that discipline throughout their life. So I found that quite interesting. There was one rule that I loved. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not who someone else is today. Rule number 4. And I really like that because, you know, it's quite easy to compare ourselves to others at times. I think it's quite natural at times, you know, when we look at other people that maybe come from a... Say that again?
Especially the world, like, you know, with social media now.
Exactly.
It's even worse.
But yeah, it's quite easy to look at what someone else is doing and think, oh, I want to do that, or I want that, or, you know, that they're really happy, or they're really sad, or whatever. And at the end of the day, all that matters really is if you are happy and content within yourself, and you are progressing yourself. Or you don't even necessarily have to be progressing, as long as you're content with where you are, you know. I'm, you know, a big believer on continuously progressing, you know, part of the entrepreneurial lifestyle. It's
the mindset.
Part of the entrepreneurial mindset. But what did he say? So when you're thinking, so for example, say you wanted someone else's job. I think that, he gave a story actually about someone wanting a managerial role or something, and they didn't get it, or I can't remember the exact story, but he said, rather than think you want someone's job, think why you want that job. Like, what is it? What's the reason you want that job? And how can you be content without it? Because you don't know all the stresses, all the other factors that are actually coming with that job. You don't actually know. And he asked 3 questions. What is it that is bothering me about, you know, why you want that job? Is that something I could fix within myself? And am I willing to fix it? And if the answer is no, then gotta aim elsewhere. You know,
Yeah.
unless you're willing to fix it, you're willing to put in the things to fix it and do something about it.
Yeah.
Say you want that job. Okay, cool. How can I get that job? What am I going to do? Do I need to study? Do I need to train? Whatever. I don't know.
But, no, you're right.
But yeah, I really like that section of comparing yourself to compare yourself to who you were yesterday, because I just felt it was a nice reminder. Nice reminder.
I think like he says here, so that we've become, in the book he says, we have become digitally connected to the entire 7 billion people on the planet. So when you think back, this generation now, because of social media, like we can remember, maybe not you actually, but I can definitely I remember growing up without social media. You know what I'm saying?
So do I.
Yeah? You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. We're not that big age difference.
But basically, so we kind of remember growing up and then playing out on the estate, whatever. And the only people you can compare, obviously you compare yourself, that's natural, you know, but it's just the people you see. Like, okay, my family, my friends, their friends, and you know, as you get older, you go to you kind of branch out further and you meet new people and Now you can be, because of different social media platforms, you can see people your age. Oh, this guy, he's 20 and he's done this, or she's 50, she's only 18 and she's done that, and So now and historically as well, think about historically, you can only compare yourself to your neighbors and people around you. So you don't even know what's going on in the rest of the world, you know, before even the world was connected as it is now. So that kind of, and obviously that has an effect on your self-esteem, your self-confidence, and back to serotonin and whatnot. So what is happening now is people are living through their screens and they're comparing themselves. This person in this country is the same age as me and he's done this or she's done that, or look at the car he's driving, look at the car she's driving, XYZ. So this is a good reminder where it's like, you know, and I think again it comes to that maybe level of maturity, that level of personal understanding as well, that you're only, you know, as an athlete, or you know, it's kind of these cliches that are thrown around, like, you know, my only competition is the person in the mirror. It's actually true, but it's hard to, we're not reminded of that enough. So again, like I said, very simplistic rules to kind of go by. The only real competition is you, because like you said, in that thing where people look at, we use like footballers as an example. Oh, you know, oh man, this footballer gets paid that much, man. I wish I was in that position. Or like, you know, musicians, or this guy, look, he's on tour here. You don't know their story, man. You don't know this. You don't know the sacrifices that they put in. They don't get to see their family. They get here, they're there training, or what? You don't know what they did. So compare, you don't know. So this is why you're only real, and the longer you focus on them, you're not focusing on yourself. So you're not thinking or taking that as a motivation. That look, they worked hard, but what can you take from that? So it's, you know, it's important, and it's simple. Like I said, simple. This is something that I would say to a young person. Something that I would say to myself, to friends. You know, you can only focus on yourself. You're looking at other people. Oh, they've done this, they've done that. So it's kind of irrelevant to you. What effect does that have on your life? Do you know what I'm saying?
I think this book had so many nice messages in it, and so many nice reminders. In terms of just gone.
No, the one that because I definitely want to speak a little bit about. I think it was the Rule 11, but I know you were saying another one that I'm trying to find. That's it. There was a few, because I'm going through them now, but the one about looking after yourself, treating yourself like someone you had to take care of. That to me was like, I was like, wow, that was quite profound, because he gave an example in the beginning about people looking after their dogs. Like if you have a dog or if you have an animal, and people will make sure if your dog was sick or someone you looked after was sick, you would give them the medication that they needed if you're looking after them, you know. But people won't do that for themselves. So that element of self-care, and I think that's really important. So yeah, man, that was a. What did you think about that chapter?
What chapter was it? I wrote that down, but I can't. Where is it?
I'm trying to find it. Rule 2. It was rule number 2.
Oh,
so
that's
treat
right.
yourself like someone you have to
treat yourself like so. Again, that was a nice reminder, because I think he used an example of pets. You know, people with their pets, their pet is, you know, showing some signs of whatever, they'll spend thousands on looking after their pet, taking it to the vet. They'll spend big money, and they'll make sure the pet's got a nice bed, a nice food, nice whatever, but they wouldn't do that for themselves. And I think that was a nice reminder to actually you got to take care of yourself sometimes. You've really got to do things that help you, look after yourself, rather than, well, not saying rather than, not instead of, but as well as, it's great that we care about other people, other like pets or whatever, and it's good to continue to look after other people, but don't forget yourself. And I think that was the key message I took from that. Within that chapter, the thing is with this book, and obviously we'll get to it more on the rating side, but it's like, I feel like, because the rules are so simplistic, that they could actually be described in a few sentences or a few paragraphs. But he the best, I got the essence of the rules at the end of the chapter. That's what I kind of felt like. The beginning of the chapter was the introduction, then the middle was like, he talks about a lot. He's obviously like very strong in his faith, so it goes, he talks a lot about the Bible, a lot of stories from the Bible, and then he talks about order and chaos. And I think with Jordan Peterson, his perspective on the world is basically life is suffering. So I mean, I feel like, and that's not really my disposition. So sometimes it's like, this is even books I've read in the past, and I'm like, wow, man, this perspective of this book it's very dark. Like, it's very like, it's just dark is the best way I could describe it. So it kind of, it's like, wait, is life suffering? I mean, you could argue it is, yes, but then you could also argue it isn't. Do you know what I mean? It just depends on what perspective you're coming from. But then obviously he talks about chaos, and because I think the antidote to chaos. So it's like, okay, these rules are the antidote to chaos. The chaos is what we live in. I was like, right. I was really trying to find out how we define chaos. I think in that chapter he actually put order is skating on firm solid ice, and then chaos is when the ice cracks. I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I get the perspective you're coming from, and that's quite a good metaphor for how to kind of describe, what is the chaos that we're living in. So it's just, man. But again, within that chapter, it was very much about self-care, and I think it's really important. And I think even again, talking to like parents and stuff, I don't think this was necessarily in this chapter, but what came to my mind is, when you, as you just said, people look after their pets more like than they should, not than they should do, but then more than they look after themselves. But then also with people that have kids and they kind of live, they do everything for their children. But at the end of the, there's going to come an age where you should be raising kids that are going to leave the house at some, you shouldn't. Again, go. You should whatever. But it's like, then when that time happens, you need to make sure there's something left in you that you can actually still live a good life for yourself personally. So when you kind of look at that chapter, made me think a lot about maybe parents that like they're doing everything, their whole life is for their children. Then I think he talks about in another chapter where it's like, you make a deal, like the parent makes a deal with the child, like a deal in inverted commas, where it's like, I'm going to do everything for you, I'm going to tend to you, I'm going to bathe you so much. All you have to do is never leave, because there's that codependency. So then they're raising like a child that isn't really equipped to leave the house, and to live alone, or to live in the world. And the parent needs that child, and the child needs the parent. But then there's an element of resentment there from both sides. It's really, look, this book it's very deep. This kind of book, it's hard to get, like, you need to read it. I just had to reread it a little bit. I had to brush through the chapters again before this, because of there's a lot. I feel like he talks a lot. He makes the we've got the title, we've got the rules, but then there's a lot of stuff that he talks about in each chapter. I mean, the chapters are really long, and he actually uses a lot of examples, and some which you might have to know a little bit about to understand it. I mean, like you said, he references the Bible a lot. He talks a lot about Genesis, and there were a lot of parts in it that actually confused me a bit. I had to reread it. But the essence of the book, in terms of the rules, I think we could talk about the rules all day. There were a few more that I definitely wanted to go over. And
can I just a final point on that one before we move on?
Go on.
Is what he was kind of saying within that chapter. The reason we don't look after ourselves is because of some self-hate. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, why would you look after someone that you don't respect or you don't value? So the reason we're doing that subliminally is because we don't respect ourselves or love ourselves. So it's very, very, it's hard. What do you say? So if I was kind of quote it, if we wish to take care of ourselves properly, we would have to respect ourselves, but we don't, because we are, at least in our own eyes, fallen creatures. So that goes down to, he talks about like the Garden of Eden story, with Adam and Eve, and so it goes and goes and goes.
Do you know what I feel like it was with this book as well? Some of the messages that he explains, I can understand it, but I can't articulate it back. Because the way he articulates it is so bamboozled, it bamboozled.
But you know what it is? I've watched a lot of his seminars, and he actually writes the way he speaks. So the way he speaks is the way he writes. So when he's writing certain things, I can hear his voice. Sorry, carry on.
But some of it bamboozled me a little bit. But when I've watched, because I've been watching his videos this month as well because of reading the book, and it's a lot clearer when I'm watching the videos in terms of the messages in relation to the book. But one of the things I learned a new word in this. Is it the same word? I think it's the same word.
Listen, this book here is the only book I had to Google words. I actually highlighted one. It's axiom. I can't remember what it means. But go on, carry on. What's your one?
There were a lot of words that I was thinking, okay, I think I know what it means, but because I like to read with my phone nowhere near me, so I don't get distracted, I can't just quickly Google it. So I should have wrote them down, but there was one word, expedient, which I didn't know what it meant, and I don't know if you knew what it meant. I know what it means now.
I get the gist of it. I don't. Go on, carry on.
So anyway, he one of the rules is do what is meaningful, not what is expedient. And expedient is basically taking the easy route, but it might also be immoral. I think I wrote down the exact convenient and practical, but not but improper or immoral. So convenient or practical, but it may not be more, it may not be the right thing to do, but you're doing that route anyway. And it's actually funny how I can take some points of these books and use it in my life, because even that point there, this is so random and it's not even really that related. Anyway, it is a bit. I was on a run, going for a run, and there's a part on my run where there's like not an alley, like a little path where I never go down. I always go round it, because when people walk down it, it's so narrow that it's like a bit awkward to like for me to run and for them to walk. Like, it's not wide enough. So I think, I always go around. It's maybe an extra 100 meters. And I thought, I'm cheating myself. When I was running to it, there was no one coming through it. So I thought, okay, I might take the path today. And I thought, actually, is that the right thing to do? Is that are you cheating yourself? I went around, and I was like, but that was purely because of the book, which I found quite funny. But it talks a lot about delaying gratification.
Yes, very, very chapter, big, very big.
Which I found, quite. What's the word I'm looking for? I thought it was just a good inspiration as well, because obviously, some of the viewers might know, we make a lot of sacrifices in our lives for our businesses, and the sacrifices we make are for it to pay off later down the line in the long term. And sometimes people are unwilling to make sacrifices in the short term for the long term gains. And it talks about having the delay of gratification, sacrifice now so that you can be rewarded later. And I liked an example it gave about monkeys, because it said that monkeys aren't necessarily willing to do that, because there was a monkey, there was a jar with like some treats in it or whatever, and the monkey put his hand in it to get the treats inside, grabbed it, but while he's grabbing it with a fist, he can't get his fist out, so he can't let go of the treat, but also he can't eat it. so he's just got his hand stuck in there. So he's not willing to sacrifice letting go of the tree so that he could get his hand back. And I thought, what a interesting way of life. You know, if you see life that way, that's crazy, because you can't eat it anyway.
No, look, man, that's like a trick, which I think they use that to catch monkeys. That's how they actually catch monkeys in the thing. But yeah, like you said, delayed gratification. And one thing I've definitely the last 2 years, it's really been, I've realized how much I've sacrificed. Do you see what I mean? It's like I looked at my life personally, like, wow, man, I've sacrificed a lot of things for what I'm trying to achieve. I mean, for what I'm working towards. So, and I've become more aware of it. And I think it's kind of made me value that more. And it's also made me value other people that I see making sacrifices. And even I think, you know, when I look back into my parents and I think of my mum and my dad, and I feel like, wow, man, they sacrificed a lot for us to live a life, just for us to be able to go to school and have dinner. And those little things, man, like, you know, as you get older, you kind of start to look at and think like, right, there's a lot of sacrifices made. And he actually talks about this in Rule 11. Don't interrupt kids when they're playing on skateboards. But he talks about sacrifices that were made before you to get to the point where you are today. So I recognize that, and then also I'm recognizing the sacrifices that I've made. So yeah, man, delayed gratification is, you know, and again, he also always goes back to like biblical times, to like the Bible. And I think he says, you know, it's from back then, sacrifice was it from biblical times and ancient times, where humans learned to sacrifice in the present for future self. So going back to when people made sacrifices, you know, people sacrificed their animal, which might be their prized animal, for the future, for future rewards and whatnot. So it's historic, and it's you know, we don't do sacrifices like that. Well, you know, in modern day, but we sacrifice time, we sacrifice effort, energy. So I was going to say money.
I think it talked about the community as well. You know, where I think back in the day they would catch you know, an animal or whatever for meat, and rather than you know, eat it all, you know, you give it to your neighbor, you give it to your community. So then now we're in a community where actually everyone benefits off each other, because we're all sharing. And you know, you're delaying. You could hold on to that, but what's the point? You know, give it to everyone, so then hopefully that will come back to you later. And I kind of like, well, not kind of, I did like that message, because I think it's important to give, you know, like if you can, you know, with whether it's information, whether it's time, whether it's, you know, motivation, whatever. But I feel like, you know, it's important to put that out there. And I thought, that was a nice.
Because when you do that, you create a culture within the community, isn't it? Because then it's like, all right, you've gone out now and you've caught this animal or whatever, and you've shared it amongst everyone. So that now becomes a culture. So then when I go out and I do the same, I do the same thing, and then somebody else goes out and they do the same thing. So now that's like an economy within the culture. That's what, you know, within the culture of the community. That's everyone kind of working together, and that benefits the community as a whole, because now everyone's eating, everyone's being able to benefit from everyone else's action. So yeah, look, man, there's a lot, and like I said, it's simplistic. It's simplistic.
Let's go on to 11, because I know you want to talk about it.
Only because I feel like it would be a cop out not to. Because it's like he's very controversial, and like I said, I had one very, very heated debate, not heated, but interesting conversation with one of my friends, and he's like, because, you know, Jordan Peterson is, people say he's a sexist, or he's anti-feminist, XYZ. So I actually made sure I read that chapter or that section before, like there's a few pages, about 3 or 4 pages specifically on the patriarchy. So I kind of read that. So with the patriarchy,
so the rule itself is, do not bother children when they are skateboarding. Yeah.
And again, I was trying to explain this to my brother, because he was like, oh, what's the rules? And I was like, it's not as simple as that. So I think it was like, oh, what rule were you on at the moment? I was like, I'm on rule 11. He's like, oh, what's it called? I was like, oh, don't bother children while they're skateboarding. And he's like, huh? And I'm like, yeah, but it's kind of like a metaphor. So he's like, obviously it doesn't make any sense, but you have to read it. And again, this is one of those, I feel like there were rules within this chapter itself. Like there was a lot. It touched on a lot of things. It touched on like society, patriarchy, feminism, and all that kind of stuff. So what he's kind of basically trying to get about is within this, especially with that woman. Let me sit here. Yeah. So with the reason, the name of this chapter was brought about because he talks about somewhere in Canada there was an area where kids were going and they were skateboarding, just having fun. And then the whole, when you kind of go into the psychology, obviously he's a psychologist or psychiatrist, I can't remember, but it's like you look into why the children choose to skateboard. It's because of that relationship between risk and fun. And the more risky, you know, with kids at playgrounds, why do they climb up climbing frames? Why do they jump from here to there? It's that element of risk, and that's how you learn to manage risk and gauge your risk. And it's kind of like, it's that kind of vibe. So he's talking about these children when they're skateboarding, they're grinding or doing whatever they're doing, making it dangerous. But now the state comes in, or people start to complain, and now they want to make it safe. So what they basically did is they put up barriers or something so they couldn't skateboard anymore. So that's an area where those children now can fall into antisocial behavior, or they now look for those risks in other areas, because risk is a form of learning, and it gets kind of like that. I hope I've explained it well enough. So that is kind of the name of the chapter, and he talks about it at the beginning, but then he goes way off on different tangents within that chapter. I mean, what would you say about that?
I mean, there were lots of things in that chapter. I mean, I wrote down 2 specific notes on it. And again, this was a bit that this was confused me. I had to reread it. I wasn't sure I still understood it properly. But it talks about the Oedipal mother, like
Oedipus, the Oedipus theory.
Raising their child. And when I googled it, like I wasn't sure it was the same vibe or not. But what I wrote down was the Oedipal mother is a desire for sexual involvement with the parent of the opposite sex. So, I mean, a desire for this sexual involvement with the parent of the opposite sex. So if the male child, I mean, is it Game of Thrones? Is it Game of?
I haven't watched Game of Thrones.
I think it might be Game of Thrones, where there's the mother is like basically I don't even know. With the son, basically, like as he's growing up, she's kind of, you know,
I think it's more like with the Oedipus theory, it's the saying that boys are attracted to their mums and girls are attracted to their dads to some degree. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, when they say your parents are your first love and stuff like that, but I don't know enough about it to speak about it at length, but that kind of confused me a little bit. But one of the things I took from this, which again, I mean, because I did my International Men's Day webinar the other day, and I didn't necessarily like this, because I know he's very how should I say it, scientific in terms of like gender roles. Like men generally have certain emotions, women generally have certain emotions. Statistically, when we look at it as a statistic overall, you know, men are more likely to do certain things, women are more likely to do certain things. And I think one of the subsections was called "Toughen Up, You Weasel," and it was basically talking about, you know, men taking in society, men taking the mick out of each other just to see if they can handle it, so that they can respect them. Which I kind of get to an extent, because, you know, say we were hanging out and I started, you know, bannering you and say, "Oh, Chris, look at your glasses, you 4 eyes guy." Say you took offense to it, then now it's like, oh, okay, I don't want to hang out with this guy. He can't even take a joke. He's not man enough to you know, accept criticism on that level. I don't know, what did you think about that specifically? I mean, I get it, and I think it's the thing with Jordan Peterson is he's very, very smart, so he can kind of say something and word it in a way that it's hard to argue with, because it's quite logical. But from another level, from maybe an emotional level or a different kind of point of view, you just kind of know it's not really, you don't necessarily agree with it, but he can kind of prove his point through logic. You get what I mean? I mean, with that, again, I think it's it's too much. It's too much to even talk on. Like, but it's like I agree with you basically in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But this, I mean, there's so much, Tyler. But basically, it's like with this thing, with the whole going back to quickly the stuff about skateboarding. Yeah. What he's basically saying is the society is trying to protect people to the point of a weakness. So don't protect these young. Let them take risks so they become strong. It's basically that, and I can't really argue with that. Do you know what I mean? I can't really argue with that. Now there's a whole list
because I think because he talks about his daughter as well.
Yeah.
Sorry to go on. Yeah, he talks about his daughter, and she's been through lots of health issues, health problems, and she wants to get on a motorbike and ride somewhere. But if she falls off the motorbike, it could be really dangerous. I mean, she could break her hip or whatever, and he's still like encouraging it and saying, "No, look, you still gotta do these things. This is still life, you know. These are still risks." And I think again that was a nice message. That was like, you know, even though there are risks, sometimes you still have to do things because you can't let fear of what could happen prevent you from doing what you want to do. And that was that was one of the messages I took from that bit as well.
I think basically we're going back to the patriarchy quickly. So he talks about is it a hindrance or a help, and he talks about how it came about. So he says historically through historical times, roles have kind of been developed not because of men, and I'm not saying that this is not what I agree with. This is I'm just trying to articulate what he's saying. So not because of men, but because of it's just been the way that we've been able to socialize, and things have kind of formed into this matter where it's kind of laid. The lay of the land is as it is, and it said the culture has become an oppressive culture. So that's not because men have set it out this way, but it's just because it's been the best for society. This is Jordan Peterson's words, not mine, or his point of view. So people challenge the views of that the patriarchy is oppressive, but he feels that it has mutual benefits for men and women. And he said there's no evidence to support the claim that it's man-made, is basically what he's saying. Now, people kind of, and he's had lots of debates, there's loads of debates online if you're more interested in this, but he feels that so people say, oh, you know, when you look at roles in CEOs, they're all men, all white males, What he countered to this, his counter to that argument is that group identity is problematic because you can keep faxing it down. So, you know, obviously as a black person, I'll be like, well, you know, and this is me, if I was having a discussion with him, it'll be, well, look, there's no black CEOs or there's no black female CEOs, but then he'll break it down and say, okay, well, how many of those black people are from Africa? How many are from the Caribbean, for example? Okay, how many are straight? How many are from He's like, his thing is, well, you can keep breaking it down to the point where, and that's his kind of counter to it, which I got a better understanding of that from reading this. I'm not saying I agree with it, but that's his perspective. So it's like, he doesn't believe in group identity. He's like, well, this is how society has come about because we've had to go through from the Stone Ages until now, and it's just kind of worked out that way, that things are this way, and that's for the benefit of everybody. That's kind of his perspective on it. I don't really agree with it, if I'm honest with you, but this was something that I had a few debates with, or a few conversations, especially with like some females and obviously some males as well saying, oh, he's sexist, he's this and that. He also goes on to like gender roles, this was something that was quite interesting to me, and I had quite a big debate with my fiance about this, and I actually did a poll on my social media about it as well, on my Instagram, about women and whether they, let me get it right. So
while you look for it, I
didn't
vote on your poll because it was too vague. You know, it wasn't a yes or no answer to the question that you put in my head. When I saw it, it wasn't yes or no, it was, it depends. What was the question again?
All right, cool, because I want to hear what you're going to say. So this was the part about career and marriage, and it's on page 299, and it was one sentence. He just said, women prefer, which is the important word, women prefer a partner of equal or greater status. Now I spoke about this with my fiance, and I was like, I think it's true for various reasons. I was like, I think it's true. What do you think as a woman? Because obviously I'm a man. So what do you think as a woman? So we had kind of a long conversation about it, and I said, look, when I look at people that I know, men don't necessarily typically, conversations I've had in the past, men don't typically say, oh, when I get a girl, she's got to have a job, she's got to have a car, she's got to have all these kind of things, which is fine because everyone has their standards. I've never heard men say maybe other things, but I've definitely heard women say he's got, those sort of things. Not all women, because you can't generalize like that. But I think the majority of women I spoke to, so when I did that poll, the majority of it agreed with, I said, is that true, yes or no? I just put it out there because I didn't want to put my perspective on it. But majority of people, I think it was like 89% said yes, and a lot of them were women that actually voted, And the reason he said that, sorry, 1 minute, before he says that, the reason he said that was because he said women, in the society, women typically look after, are the kind of child bearers, and they're the ones who kind of spend a lot of time helping raising the children. This is his views. So he goes, women don't necessarily want to take on another dependent because they've got the dependence of the children. So they've got to look after, this is what women have to struggle with. They've got to look after the children and they look after themselves. Not all women, I'm not a sexist, but that's kind of what he's saying. So then now they don't want to have to look after themselves, the children, and now look after a man. They want a man that's going to help them, that's going to help benefit them and maybe even look after them to some degree. So that was interesting. What's your views?
Yeah, well, I thought it depends because, I'm sure you probably, well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. You see maybe someone in a relationship where the woman is the go-getter and the guy is, lazy. They're not necessarily doing much. The woman is actually the one hustling or doing things, and they're still, a fully functioning couple. And that's why I didn't vote, because I think as a rule, yes, I think if I had to say yes or no, yes, I think women would prefer someone as equal or greater status as them. However, there are lots of people who don't care about status. They don't care about that. They just want someone to love them. They want other things. They don't necessarily want status. They want companionship or companionship or whatever, right? So I think yes, as a rule, but not generalizing. So like I said,
I think it's about, that's why the important word for me is preference.
Yeah, prefer.
So prefer, it doesn't mean it's like you prefer, if you go to dinner, if you say, oh, Thai, let's go get some food, and they've only got burgers and chips, or I prefer Thai food today, but cool. Do you know what I mean? So it's their preference. If they could pick, if they could handpick, they would handpick. But again, it was just interesting, and that's that chapter alone, because I was reading the book and I was like, wow, this book isn't actually that controversial. Like, I mean, I'm surprised. I thought maybe he left it out. Then obviously when we got to chapter 11, I was like, oh, okay, this is where we're smoking. Like, this is where we're smoking. But look, man, it's good debate. It's good conversation.
On your poll, for the people that voted no, were there any women that voted no?
One or two, yeah. But again, not a lot. I mean, maybe I had 100 people vote, if that, maybe 100 or something. But it's just interesting. And they were. But the thing is, the women that voted no, I could see. Obviously I know everyone. I was like, okay, I can kind of see it, and it's preference. So, like you said, some people don't care. It's the same way where some guys don't care about, if you flip it now, we flip the conversation, and it's like, okay, guys, are guys intimidated by women that earn more money than them, that have higher status than them? That's like the second part to the question, because it comes, there's two sides to the coin. Do you know what I mean? So, there's some men who might be like, well, boy, and I've heard guys say this, like, my woman, she can't make more money than me, or no, I've got to have a better job than her, or X, Y, Z. So it's like, there's two sides to the coin, because, all right, so then do guys prefer a woman that has lower status than them? Yeah. So I mean, is that, and then when I look on my kind of past experience, and I think, okay, what's my preference? Would I prefer this or would I prefer that? Do you know what I mean? So it's just interesting, and that's kind of why I like Jordan Peterson, because these kind of conversations he has a lot, and I find it interesting. The debate,
it makes you think. It makes you think.
Yes. It makes you challenge your perspective,
100%. Now, there was one more rule I want to go over before we go on to the difficulty rating quickly. I don't want to make this a super long episode like some of our others. And that was the rule: assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't. And this was another rule that I really liked, because sometimes when you have conversations with certain people and they're not listening to you, they're just listening so that they can respond. They're waiting for you to stop talking so that they can say their point. And there was a really nice message when it came to like disagreements or debates, and I think it was called the Rogerian method. And essentially it's, say we're in a disagreement about something, rather than continuing our disagreement, it's important for each of us to understand our points fully. So I have to say, okay, Chris, I think this is what you're saying. So I have to relay back to you everything that you're saying. I have to relay your point until that you're satisfied that I actually understand what you mean, and then vice versa. And that can help us settle our dispute or disagreement, because now we fully understand what each other means, and we're not sort of assuming or taking words out of context. And I really like that, man.
Yeah. I think as well, because a lot of disagreements are down to misunderstanding.
Yes.
It's like, you think I said this, but I actually said that, and vice versa. So yeah, what's that? The Rogerian theory?
Rogerian method is what I wrote down. And yeah, I really like that. And also it talks about thinking, and this again made me think as well, and said what I wrote down is thinking is an internal dialogue between two or more viewpoints. So when you're thinking about a situation, you're thinking about, you're comparing with yourself, you're comparing two different points, or 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever. And that again really made me think. And
I think like you said, give the other person the respect to listen to them properly and look from their perspective, which a lot of people don't really do enough. They don't do enough. And I think even I work with a lot of young people, and the young people that I work with, sometimes I learn from them. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, cool as it sounds, because they've got a different perspective, they've got different experiences. So definitely like listening to what people have to say. I think he's put it here. He says, imagine someone holds a stack of $100 bills, some of which are counterfeit, but all bills need to be spread out on the table to distinguish the real and the fake ones. Use this approach when listening to someone trying to solve a problem or communicate something important. So basically, you might speak to someone for 5 minutes or even an hour, but there might be a section within what they're saying which is actually really valuable to you.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, so don't just kind of assume that, because my position is this and that position is that, or because they're this and you're that. That you can literally learn something from everyone. So I agree, man. There's a lot of, again, very simple, going way back, very simple, easy things to kind of take on and will enrich your life, because if you let other people speak or you listen to them, you can learn from them, regardless of who they are.
And what I liked about it as well, in terms of listening, I think how listening can really help someone else, because he talks about his clients and how he tries not to interfere, and he might ask small questions, but really they're just speaking, and then they're working out the issue themselves, because they're saying it to you. And I think, I mean, I can even relate this to us, because we chat, quite regularly on the phone, like about work or whatever, or what's going on. And sometimes you might say something, or I might say something, and we haven't really helped each other. We've just been there to listen, and we've worked out, okay, actually, no, this is what I'm actually going to do now, because I've been able to express it and been able to think in my head.
When you articulate it.
Yeah, exactly. When you articulate it to someone else. So I thought, yeah, man, that was just a nice reminder that listening is key. And I think as well, I really like that, because I feel like I implement it in a lot of my circles. So even Christmas just now, like, everyone has discussions and whatnot, and I realize that I'm quite often just the one sitting there listening, and I'm not really going to add a point unless I feel like it's absolutely necessary that I need to counteract what someone's saying, or I'm just there listening. I'm like, okay. Because
but it's good, and like you said, people need to listen. People need to feel like they've been listened to. You know what I'm saying? But because even going back to thinking, it's like, thinking is listening to yourself. And then true thinking is rare. So do you know what I mean? So even that, and then jumping all the way to the last chapter, the coda, where he's talking about, and I'm not going to go into it because there's not enough time, but this is something which I do quite a lot, is where you're kind of asking yourself questions, and in order to get the right answers, you have to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
So, and then again, that's kind of like true thinking, and then that will open up all these other doors, because you're kind of really scrutinizing yourself and saying, well, why did I do that?
Yeah, and being honest with yourself.
Yes.
So yeah, man, I mean, 12 rules for life. There's so many key messages that I took from this book, so many to take. So we're going to come on to our star rating and our difficulty rating. And I forgot at the start, I was going to say, write down your star and difficulty rating before we discussed it.
Mine hasn't changed anyway.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I wrote mine down before I started.
Okay, as yours changed.
Would it have checked? Maybe it would have, but I'm sticking to what I wrote down, because so again, we always forget who went first. I think it's your turn. You went first,
yeah. Well. Yeah. The thing is, I didn't actually have one. I was still kind of undecided. Kinda. I was undecided.
Star rating first. Star rating.
I'll give this a solid 3.
Okay, 3 out of 5.
Solid 3, yeah. Solid 3, yeah. Solid 3. Okay. And again, a difficulty rating.
Wait.
Yeah.
Let me.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah.
I'm jumping
the gun. I'm thinking. One thing I'll say. The reason why I give it a 3 is because after I read this book, again, a lot of people kind of asked me that. I said, look, put it this way, with this book, I would recommend it, but I wouldn't highly recommend it. Yeah. That's why I'll definitely recommend it, but I wouldn't like highly recommend it for reasons I'll go into in a moment. But yeah, go.
And man, we need to disagree more, because I wrote down a 3. I wrote down a 3. After the conversation, I was thinking, is it a 3.5? But it's a 3 because of the messages that I took from the book. I thought they were so powerful, some of them, but at the same time, there was so much in this book that was fluff. Not necessarily fluff, but it was just. I mean, musings. We'll come on to it was what?
It's like musings, it's the thought process.
Yeah, it's like
a mind map.
He didn't necessarily need to talk about a lot of the stuff that he did, and which is interesting because he's actually wrote another book that he's compressed that book into this book, which. The messages in the other book, he's shortened it. Apparently it's like some mammoth of a book, and now this one's a slightly easier read or much easier. And I feel like this book could even be chopped down to a smaller, shorter version.
No, he's got another book after this as well. Beyond Order.
Okay.
So that's 12 more rules.
Okay, 12 more. Okay,
12 more rules for that.
But yeah, so 3 is what I'm going with. Difficulty rating, let's hear it. I'm interested to hear.
This is a 4.
Yeah.
This is a 4 for me. Yeah, it's because I think even when I read that chapter again the second time, it was easier to read. So you need to read this book more. It's 4 because of like I said, the words. Some of the words. I mean, you said the words you had to Google. There was a few that I Googled, but the one I wrote down was axiom. A statement or proposition which is regarded as being established, accepted, or self-evidently true. But yeah, it's difficult, but there's nothing wrong with that. It just took me about 3 chapters to get my head around the language and the way he writes and his writing style. But it wasn't an easy read. And also, besides the language that was used and the perspectives that were in there, which were hard enough on their own, the fact that some of the chapters I was like, this doesn't even really have anything to do with what does, it's like the beginning of the chapter is the statement, then the middle is just a lot of thought process and a lot of stuff that doesn't necessarily need to be there. Then the end is the actual point. It's like, that middle bit didn't even really need to be there. But
yeah.
Cool.
And I mean, almost echoed. This I found hard, man. I can't lie. This book was hard for me to read. It took me, I wouldn't even say I got into it. I say I got into it at points when there were things that I was like, okay, this story is really interesting here, or this point here is really interesting. But I found it really difficult to read. I had to go back and read a lot of the pages when I was reading. I was like, I would read it and be like, what did he even say on that page? I have no idea what I just read. So I'm actually giving this a 4.5 because I found it harder than last month's book, which was Think and Grow Rich. I think, I just found it a bit harder. And it was a difficult read. And I think the fact that it was so difficult made me enjoy it less. I felt like it took away some of the enjoyment because I wasn't looking forward to reading it because I knew it was a challenge to read. It wasn't like, oh, this is fun. This is like, okay, I'm actually working right now. I'm not, I'm having to really concentrate to take this in.
It wasn't like that leisure.
Yeah, it wasn't reading at leisure. So yeah. Okay, wicked. Jordan Peterson, 12 Rules for Life. And we've actually got a competition for this book. We're going to give 2 copies of this book away. And to enter the competition, all you need to do is hit the subscribe button and comment. Hit the subscribe button and comment, and we'll announce the winner in our next book review. So hit the subscribe button and comment, and you will win this book.
Just want to say big up to Essence number 1.
Yes,
they're the ones who provided those books, so they got lovely candles. Big up
episode
Essence
sponsored
1.
by Essence.
Yes,
mine's in
right. I've got these all over the place.
It's not sponsored really, but big up Essence. If you like candles, I'm going to put that link in the description box. Really nice candles, actually really long lasting. Now, next month's book, we have Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Let me just put it there to the camera. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. This is a book that I've picked, rather than not picked. It was given to me recommended by a guy called Rick. So big up Rick for recommending this book. And before we just finish, I just need to say 12 months, 12 books. We completed it, baby. Our goal was to finish 1 book a month. We've done it over the year, and we've decided to just continue it as part of life. This is life now.
Yeah, this is it. This is the way you think. This is the way it goes. This is the way it goes. Look up to your camera, by the way. You're looking ultra HD there, my G. Let me see that face.
Upgrading. We're leveling up. So next year's book reviews, they're going to be in HD. Well, I don't know if it's HD, but yeah. Anyway, remember, support the ting. Let's not blabber. Support the ting. Peace and love. And we'll catch you in the next one.
Salute, man. Salute.